South Asian Valorant had been a sleeping volcano for the last 3 months. Since the last tournament that was held back in December, there had been practically nothing happening except for roster changes, team build-up, speculations and whatnot, mostly from the team side. A lot of these teams, while going through their changes, had also seen under the weather community talks happening, especially about when are we going to see the new South Asian Valorant era, and which is to be helmed by Nodwin Gaming. But in the last 2.5 months, practically we got nothing from Nodwin. Now, in this video, I'm gonna just try to explain what I have understood across the entire scene. Number one thing being, you guys need to understand that every coin has two sides and so does every story. I am just trying to do justice to the story that is at hand, which is covered from both directions. First, let's start with the obvious. What we have seen from the outside. In January, we started getting news of all these teams going through their roster changes. Velocity Gaming, Orangutan, Revenant, and all of the teams who we know and love had their secret roster changes, which were eventually obviously revealed going on. But one thing that was common across all these teams, their players, their org owners, managers, everything, was the fact that even they actually did not know anything about what was happening with Nodwin and the VCL. They were just as much in the dark about the VCL as much as we were. If you've noticed, in the last couple of weeks, every single org owner or player who you would have asked what is happening about the VCLSA, they would say that they also actually don't know, and they're being genuine about it, because Nodwin has not contacted them either about what exactly is happening. There's been practically no confirmations about anything so far. And this has been going on for some time though. Now, the beginning of this was still early. It was still early. People were hopeful that, Nodwin would take care of this and do their due diligence, because they've done events of this scale before. They have taken care of delays and stuff like that. But there's also the understanding that this is a first of its kind happening event for South Asia. But then a rumor came. A rumor that there would be buy-in slots for these teams to enter the league. We didn't know at that point whether or not we'd have open qualifiers. This was still early February. And Nodwin so much as to did not even whisper anything about this on any social media platform. But while Nodwin was on radio silence, the entire community, as usual, delivered their promise of getting information through Chinese whispers, Twitter, and whatnot. Whilst all of this was going on in South Asia, every other region in APAC had already started and almost wrapped up half of their league games as well. Questions were arising from almost every Indian fan as to what even is happening in our country when everyone's already so far ahead of us. The league that was initially supposed to start in January has not even been announced properly till Feb. What is happening? And suddenly, on the 20th of Feb, Nodwin announced the open qualifier. A lot of team managers too were apparently not aware of the same until the announcement was made by Nodwin themselves. When the qualifiers were announced, it was said that only one team from the qualifiers would qualify to the main league to play amongst the rest of the team. But yet again, rumors started circulating that Nodwin had opened up the slot of one team to 3. Reasons unknown still. People were getting enraged about this because Nodwin was providing close to zero information about anything at all. They were just zipped up completely. Questions were not just now being asked about the league, but also about the buy-in slots. People asking, why is this not a fully open qualifier like VCL Japan, to give a fair shot to everyone, where the best remain the best and they make it to the top with their skill, which is obviously fair. But why is there practically no info regarding the biggest ever Valorant event to be held in our region? Is the league going to even begin in March? What is the format? Who's going to be playing in it? Is Nodwin even capable of hosting this event? All this and a lot more has been running around on Twitter for the last couple of weeks. And even after all of this, still no information from Nodwin. But there has to be obviously a reason as to why all of this is happening, right? Let's flip the coin to the other side. Nodwin Gaming is probably the biggest TO in India. They've pulled off publisher events of the highest levels, and they continue to do it with the most trusted organizations working with them. So why is all of this happening with Nodwin? Why towards the end of February and beginning of March, even a couple of orgs got involved in conversations on Twitter but haven't really told anything or not able to. I'll give you just one acronym that probably sums up the entire chaos that is South Asian Valorant right now. NDA. Let me tell you why non-disclosure agreements are what's keeping us from privileged information that we want right now. Now, we all know what NDAs are, but we need to understand why they are put into place and what breaking them can mean. Now, just try to understand this from the perspective of a person or an org who's running their livelihood based on this, or based on the entire esports scene, who are trying to grow it, who are trying to grow into it. This is their livelihood, their business. While they too want to see the esports scene grow, definitely, otherwise they wouldn't be in this doing what they are doing. They also need to look at growth, sustainability, and security. If they break these NDAs, it would mean that they have to pay hefty fines after multiple warnings, which would cause a heavy loss for them. And when I say hefty, trust me, some of these numbers that I've heard that are running around is insane. Now, let's come to Nodwin and actually analyze what's been publicly informed to the entire audience, right? Now, the only fact that we actually know is the fact that Anadi Army are the winners of the qualifiers, and they have qualified. Legally, technically, and publicly, this is the only piece of information we are supposed to, or we do know, officially being the main word. But according to the rumor, 3 teams are supposed to be qualified, right? But why wasn't this told out? I guess NDAs. The fact that every single team who's supposed to be playing in the league has also technically not been announced. No team, if you go and ask them now, will neither confirm nor deny that they are playing in the league. This is also probably because they've all signed NDAs, including the 2nd and 3rd place teams of the qualifiers who have been qualified into the league. The minute they would have probably been informed by Nodwin that, hey, you are going through, at the same time, they would have been made to sign a piece of paper that avoids them from saying anything. That's probably why we don't hear anything from the teams either, which means there could be a chance that there's probably no buy-in system either. Now, if we are to talk about why there is such a delay in the VCL South Asia, I think the number one reason, according to me, might be legal issues, visas especially. Now, you guys have already seen that there's a lot of teams who've got amazing imports coming in, players from other countries, right? Now, if this was a one-off tournament where you can come play for, a couple of days, 3, 4, 5 max a week and go back, wouldn't be that much of a trouble, right? Because we've seen players come to India and go back as well. But this VCL South Asia is a week in, week out LAN tournament where these players will be here for at least a couple of months, which means they require work visas. And that, my friends, is one of the most difficult visas to obtain in a country like ours, which has a population of 132 crores. There might be so many conditions that come under it that Nodwin actually, in my opinion, might have trouble signing these entire teams to the league. Because if they don't have work visas, who the hell is going to be playing in these leagues? One more potential reason for these delays might be that Nodwin is still trying to set everything in order. If we look at Nodwin's powers closely, one of the biggest ones they've got is that they're partnered with Star Sports. They could also be working with OTT platforms and other streaming platforms from India to bring this at the highest scale to the viewers. Imagine how big this would be for the PC esports scene in South Asia. From a business point of view, more than money, they would be looking at marketability to attract more people to this league. Their presence, social media, their marketability, and more. What an org can provide to the league to keep it running, to get more people to get engaged. That is a criteria that I believe was being used by Nodwin to enter these teams into the league. Buy-ins, I don't know. I'm not sure of it. Because if you look at it closely, that's what TV channels and OTT platforms would also want. They don't care much about money. They make a lot of it anyway. They want more people. More the matches, which equals to more viewership. And obviously, with it being broadcasted on such high-ended, top-notch TV channels, OTT platforms, the people from those companies would want this to be streamlined, to be scheduled to a perfection T. Because you guys have seen TV channels, OTT platforms, they do not miss a minute of broadcast, which means no delays when it's happening, no extra time, just pure action which happens based on the schedule. And without that, Nodwin obviously cannot go ahead with this. Nodwin would be looking to streamlining their entire league process from top to bottom, and that obviously is not going to happen unless all the teams and players are fully ready, signed and announced. Considering this as the reason, sustainability comes into play here in the biggest way possible. Nodwin are trying to build a system, in my opinion, which is also one of Riot's core values: sustenance. If a league which is being played across more than 3 months has money funded into it, TV will fund money into it, streaming platforms will be spilling, orgs themselves would be pulling in money for their players and their growth, sponsors of both the league and the team and individual players as well will be putting in money, and all of this shares between everyone who's involved in the league, and this equals to more viewers, equals to growth, equals to massive boost for the scene, equals to more money as well. And every year as it keeps on improving, we attract more people to be a part of this, which just blows it up to a scale that we might not expect in the next 5 years. It will become a PC esports scene that will become almost self-sustaining. We don't need to do anything about it. Automatically, every year, it just keeps growing. And if you've noticed that, it's what Riot does with their other esports as well. League of Legends, for example. Longevity, sustainability, which in turn allows job security for players who are in an industry which is honestly back in time had been very volatile, to now where we've progressed at a point where we can actually say that you can find sustainable jobs in the esports industry. Now players don't have to worry too much about their sustainability or their long-term jobs, but can actually focus on their gameplay. This will also probably and hopefully set the path for future players who are looking for a job that can last them for a longer time in esports, allowing this to actually become a proper job stream where parents in India might finally agree for their child to try. All of this does sound great, universe, but what about tier 2, you may ask, right? Talent, that is the most important thing that's required right now from our country, needs to be nurtured, grown and pushed to the top. I completely agree. Now, if you've noticed what I just said earlier about the system that Riot builds, I'm going to take that as my base and make this assumption. Now, Riot's LCK, if you've seen League of Legends competition, has 2 different leagues under it. The tier 2 and tier 3 that they're running. Development leagues for the younger talent, for the newer talent to play in a league of their own, from which the tier 1 leagues can actually start picking out players. I know this seems a little bit of a long-term process, but you need to understand the workability of it. It is actually insane how good this would turn out to be if it is actually set in stone, because that's what's happening with League of Legends. A tier 2 that is directly connected to tier 1 of the Valorant scene in India, where every year teams can pick out, or every other year teams can pick out players from the tier 2 to join their teams. League 1. Now, these teams could be also given a clause where they have to incorporate players from tier 2. The reason the development league is there for that purpose, to allow to nurture, because even those leagues end up having a great standard. And I think that's the same goal for Riot from League of Legends to Valorant as well. They're trying to replicate the success of that system here, which is not at all a bad thing. You guys need to understand that this is an entire ecosystem being built from scratch, and it is literally, and I cannot stress this enough, bigger than anything we've ever had in India. We have never had an ecosystem being built in this way, where we have players who can directly reach to Ascension and then even hopefully at some point make it to the Pacific League. But this, of course, the tier 2 league, the LDL development league, is based on my speculation of what I've noticed Riot doing in League of Legends and coming similarly to Valorant. Now, overall, guys, I know a lot of you guys are angry, right? There's no excuse for what's been happening, but I gotta tell you this, it's nobody's fault. It's neither Nodwin's fault, neither is it any team's fault. it's nobody's fault that this is happening. It's just due process that unfortunately is taking time in multiple different streams. It comes to TV rights, it comes to OTT platforms, comes to streaming platforms, the deals that these guys have with Nodwin, the orgs that are working with them to set up the league, and on top of that, the visa problems with the players, and many other things. Trust me, Nodwin are trying to do their best. While they might be radio silent about it, remember that they might be under an NDA themselves with Riot. This VCL SA has been a whole NDA that is actually the worst kept secret. It isn't great whatever's happened so far, but we need to understand this is not just a competition. People's lives are involved, and this we need to understand is that the biggest PC esports ecosystem for our country is being built as we speak. It will take some time, and I think we can understand at least that much. It will take time because it takes a lot of effort. Believe me, having worked with multiple TOs myself, I kind of have an idea and experience as to what might or might not cause these delays. There is obviously a reason for why Nodwin hasn't been able to say anything or do anything about the VCL and are still working on it. They definitely are. But I believe when the VCL does come around, it will blow up our country's Valorant ecosystem bigger than we've ever seen it to be. Just a little patience is all we need. While you do maintain this patience, keep a lookout for Nodwin socials for the next 2 weeks. You never know what might pop up. Keep the love running, and maybe don't point too many fingers at people who might not be able to say something or reveal anything just because they might face consequences if they do end up revealing it. Time will come for it all. South Asia will rise.